All right, 8.4. Today we're going to talk about the equations of sinusoidal functions. So we've already learned that sinusoidal functions can be expressed as either cosine functions or sine functions. And today we're going to learn the general equation. The general equation for a sine or a cos function is y equals a times either sine or cos of b bracket x minus c and then close brackets plus d. So A is our amplitude, which makes sense. A for amplitude, that's easy enough, which tells us the distance from the midline to the maximum or the midline to the minimum. B tells us the number of cycles in 360 degrees or 2 pi. So B doesn't directly tell us our period, but we can determine our period using our B value. So the equation is 2 pi divided by B gives us our period if we're using radian mode, or we can use the equation 360 degrees divided by B if we are using degree mode. C gives us our horizontal translation or a horizontal phase shift. So that tells you how much the graph is shifting to the right or to the left. And something to note with the C value is that the C value helps us to determine if if an equation is in degree mode or radian mode. Okay, so if C value is in degrees, use degree mode. And if the C value is not in degrees, then assume that it's radian mode. So if you see a degree symbol, use degree mode. And if you don't see a degree symbol, then assume that it is in radian mode. And the D is the equation of the midline. So that tells us where the middle line of the graph is located. And we can easily use the equation of the midline in order to determine our maximum and minimum y values. So if we add the midline plus the amplitude, that's going to give us our maximum y value. And if we take the midline and we subtract the amplitude, that's going to give us our minimum y value. Now let's do an example. Here we have the equation. Y is equal to 2 cos of 4 times x plus 2 pi plus 1. So remember, our A value is our amplitude. So this is our A value. Therefore, our amplitude must be 2. Our period we can use or determine using the equation 2 pi divided by B. Remember that this is our B value. So 2 pi divided by 4 gives us 1/2 pi, or you can write it as pi over 2. So that means that our graph repeats every pi over 2 units. Our phase shift here is 2 pi units. That's our C value. And if you want to determine the direction, you would look at the positive or the negative sign. If you see a positive sign in between the x and the C value, then your graph is shifting to the left. And if you see a negative sign in between the x and the C value, your graph is shifting to the right. The midline is our D value, so therefore our midline is going to be at y equals 1. And we can easily calculate our minimum and maximum values using our D and our A values from the equation. So our minimum value is going to be our midline minus A. So 1 minus our A value, which is 2, which means that the minimum value is going to be at y equals -1. And for our maximum value, we use our D value and we add our amplitude. So our midline plus our amplitude means that our maximum y value is going to be at y equals 3. the range is always going to be greater than the minimum and less than the maximum. So it's going to be greater or equal to -1. It's going to be greater or equal to the minimum and less than or equal to the maximum y value. But it could be any real number in between that minimum and maximum value. And the domain is always going to be x as an element of the reals because the graph extends out to the left and out to the right. The only time it might not have this domain is based on the context of the question. So if the question is related to time, then we know that time has to be always greater or equal to 0.